McLaren is ahead, but that's nothing new. Ferrari's F1 team principal Frederic Vasseur makes that clear right away, reminding everyone that the Woking team has been the best of all since the start of the 2025 Formula One season. The usual 3/10 advantage is always mentioned, which didn't show up in the Chinese sprint race, the one Lewis Hamilton won due to errors made by the British team during the qualifying session. Errors that Ferrari must learn to avoid like the plague, since when you are racing, of course, there is no room for missteps. But things aren't as bad as they seem at this moment for the SF25 single-seater. Friday's 2 free practice sessions showed an indecisive Prancing Horse in some ways hard to interpret. Installing a new floor is never simple. The Maranello team is already working in the simulator right now. The goal is to shed light on today's situation in order to analyze and understand the car's behavior. Once this work is done, the group of Ferrari technicians and engineers, together with the drivers, will decide on the best setup to properly balance the SF25 for the rest of the Bahrain weekend. Not that there's any need to hide behind a finger. Things definitely could have gone better yesterday. In FP1, track conditions did not help, with overall grip lacking. Still, describing the situation as negative seems truly excessive. We say this also because, during the 2 push laps from the Ferrari drivers, the tires were anything but in the correct operating window. As a result, the grip generated by the car's 2 axles was far from optimal. In addition, there was significant thermal imbalance between the front and rear of the Italian car. For this reason, it's better to wait until today, after the final free practice session. Without a doubt, the team will have much more data to base its analysis on and will be able to build a much more realistic picture ahead of the season's 4th qualifying session. Frederic Vasseur, as mentioned, speaking to TV reporters, talks about the Maranello team's drivers, mainly about Lewis Hamilton, recounting the mistake in turn 11 that forced him to lift off, when he was about a 10th behind Oscar Piastri's benchmark. A way to highlight the level of precision Ferrari will need to show to put a lap together. As for the new floor, here's the news. The data readings are positive. This means the level of downforce provided by the new component was as expected, as were the stability benefits. Lap times don't matter that much for now. The value of this major component did not impact the stopwatch because the work program was different, and indeed, putting everything together wasn't possible due to various track-related reasons, tires, errors, and a setup that still needs fine-tuning. The Frenchman, even though the Italian team still needs to analyze the data thoroughly, confirms that the drivers are pleased with this small step forward. Then, as mentioned, he speaks about the tires and the difficulties that limited the car's pace. Yes, because as said, overheating prevented the drivers from reaching the expected performance. To give an example, let's look at Charles Leclerc. In his push lap during the 2nd free practice session on soft tires, watching the steering wheel, we noticed just that. The run started with low temperatures on both axles, far from the front-end target value of 4 points. After just over half a lap, the front was showing +9, while the rear had even reached +15. The operating window was completely off. We know how important tire management is. McLaren once again showed its great ability to manage the compounds. This is an endemic trait of the MCL39, but also a credit to the drivers and engineers in preparing the lap, where the warm-up strategy was flawless. This is precisely where Ferrari must focus its efforts, without forgetting some suspension tweaks to improve performance in changes of direction. With McLaren clearly playing in a different league at the moment, there are still several scenarios for Ferrari. Contrary to what one might think, there is still a lot at stake, even considering the impossibility of catching the papaya-colored duo. A strong result as best of the rest, just a step below the podium that would confirm the Italian side as the top team behind the leaders, would be a much-needed breath of fresh air in a challenging time, not just for the standings or image, but especially for morale. It is undeniable that the Lewis Hamilton seen on Friday in Bahrain is worlds away from the smiling driver who, just 6 weeks ago on this very track, began his Ferrari adventure. The 7-time Formula One world champion has struggled to drive the SF25 the way he wants, with mistakes during qualifying simulation and average performance on long runs, and above all, an expression on his face that says a lot. On the other side of the garage, Charles Leclerc has once again taken on a role he had gladly avoided. The driver who tries to pull off a miracle in the qualifying session, pushing the car 1 or 2 places beyond what the simulations predict. It is a script that the Monegasque driver has unfortunately seen far too often during his Ferrari F1 career, each year hoping it will become a thing of the past, only to find himself reliving the same difficult scenario once again. Charles Leclerc explained that they had encountered much higher temperatures compared to the tests carried out at the same circuit, which significantly altered the SF25 car's behavior. He noted that the Maranello team needed to work on adapting the setup to these new conditions, and mentioned that they would address the issue overnight in an effort to optimize the car. The Ferrari driver added that he was pushing in a direction that would allow him to extract the maximum performance according to his driving style. He acknowledged that their rivals from McLaren and Red Bull were currently clearly ahead, but expressed his motivation to close the gap as quickly as possible, and emphasized the importance of focusing on maximizing the car's potential, stating that he believed there was still performance to be found before the qualifying session on Saturday. The Monegasque driver concluded by saying that the Maranello team would do everything possible to make the most of the updates they had introduced, and that time would tell where their efforts would take them. A positive signal from the Sakir weekend would be a much-needed remedy, and the challenge is to stay with Mercedes and the usual Max Verstappen, who also seem to be dealing with a car that's far from as balanced and smooth as the McLaren. But the Dutchman comes off a win and is just 1 point behind Lando Norris in the 2025 Formula One Championship standings, while Mercedes has started the season with a much different pace than last year. In 2024, after 3 races, they had 26 points. Now they're on 75 with 2 podiums already. Ferrari needs to set aside the expectations from the start of the season and focus on new goals, undoubtedly less prestigious, but crucial for continuing to work calmly toward the European leg of the season. Charles Leclerc will fight for the second row later today in the qualifying session, which won't be easy, but would be an important result to start the race in the leading group. The 4th fastest time on Friday and a good race simulation on medium tires placed Charles Leclerc not far from George Russell, who appears to be the most dangerous rival aside from Red Bull's usual comeback pace. Lewis Hamilton is struggling more with the feeling than with any particular rival, and by the 4th weekend of the season, expectations were that he'd be well settled and focused on details. Right now, the scenario is different. The gaps are not huge, but they are becoming consistent. It might seem like a low-profile battle, but it's not. The Bahrain circuit presents some of the most challenging conditions to manage: old and abrasive track surface, high temperatures, and numerous traction zones that place significant stress on the rear tires, leading to overheating and amplifying thermal degradation. For this reason, a weekend with dynamics very different from the first 3 rounds of the 2025 Formula One season is expected.